Hi, I'm Tom and this is Adult Game Reviews. This week I wanted to do something for Halloween. Halloween is my favorite holiday and I'm also a horror fan. So I wanted to create a large list of spooky games. Now, not every game on this list I consider horror. Many have supernatural aspects or maybe just some creepy scenes. There are others that are just kind of dark and disturbing. I have not played all of these games, but if you'd like either a part 2 of this video or a review of any of these games, let me know in the comments. As per usual, not every one of these games is safe for YouTube, so while the original video has 26 games on it, this one has less. To see the full video, you can support me over on Patreon or Subscribestar. Thanks all. Let's kick it off with the smallest of the categories, and that's games that are dark or disturbing, but not something I would necessarily consider horror. Starting with Sweetest Monster by Ebihimi, I think that's how you say it. Kind of like Celine Apoptosis, you have a strange cat girl that comes to your door and you start to go insane. There was a sequel to Sweetest Monster called Sweetest Monster Refrain, but it was banned on Steam and I couldn't find it on itch anymore. So I have no idea if it's still available publicly. I also have no idea if this is a good game or not, but virtually every review I found says there's a very disturbing storyline, whatever that means. Either way, it has me intrigued. Next is Ravager by 4 Minute Warning. Ravager has some disturbing scenes and some brutal violence, but is it horror? I think it toes the line. There are some elements you may consider horror, but I've been so desensitized that I consider it more disturbing than horror. Ravager is just a good game if you like choose your own adventures, but it's definitely not for the faint of heart. I mean, you are a red dragon, which is one of the most evil colored dragons according to D&D and Pathfinder, where you take over the land via violence or manipulation. So keep it in mind. Okay, let's move into the supernatural section. These games have some form of supernatural elements, but aren't really considered horror. Let me know if I get anything wrong here, but most of these games I have actually played. Starting with The Neverwhere Tales by Ceolag. The whole game is fantasy, which means there's quite a few supernatural elements. When you're in the Neverwhere, you run into all sorts of interesting creatures, many of which aren't friendly. So is this game scary? No. Does it have some creepy parts? Yes. If you want to know more about Neverwhere Tales, you can check out my review of it with the link in the description. Next is Companion of Darkness. I love Companion of Darkness, but it can be violent with some darker themes. I personally didn't find anything specifically scary, but Companion of Darkness can be creepy, especially if you don't like spiders. You play a normal guy who ends up getting bonded to a supernatural creature that gives you powers. This is a great game. I haven't played the last couple of updates. I'm hoping to get around to that soon, but either way, I think it's one of the best ones on this list. Next is Funko Reagan by Jenna Muzura. Many people don't think about horror or the supernatural when looking at Funko Reagan on the surface. You have the darker, grittier visuals, and there are moments where you're confronted by creepy or even scary creatures. Did many of these scenes make me uneasy? Yes. Did they scare me? Not really. I think this could have gone in the horror section, but horror is so subjective. So like a lot of these games, it toes the line from horror to just supernatural. If you want to know more, you can check out my review of it in the description. Next is Judas Ghost by Keys to My Lockhart. You play an expert on the occult, and it's your job to investigate a haunted house that may or may not have been owned by your ancestors. This game isn't specifically scary, at least so far, but it leaned heavily into the supernatural element, with you even interacting with a ghost on the regular. I haven't checked in with the Judas Ghost in a while, and I likely wouldn't expect this to come out on Steam anytime soon, so it's best to check elsewhere. As a reminder, I have all the links to the games in my link tree. You can find that in the description. Okay, we got all the dark and disturbing and supernatural games out of the way. Now let's get into the horror games. The first in the horror section is Cabin Corpse by Metal Bee. You stumble upon a cabin in the woods with no memory about how you got there. This is actually tagged as horror and it's in early access. I haven't played this one yet, but the whole premise seems like it was ripped right out of a horror movie. I have heard good things about Cabin Corpse. There's a 24-hour night-day cycle and I think free roams, but don't quote me on that. I know how many people don't like free roams, so I wanted to kind of point that out just in case. We have another twofer, and that's Myst and the Covenant of Morn, both by 395 Games. I absolutely loved Myst. There are some grindy elements, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, even the turn-based combat. The visuals were unique and not always great, but I know there's been a step up with 395's second game, Covenant of Morn. Myst is complete, but Morn is not. So if you like horror and haven't played Myst, you're in for a real treat. Next, we have Project Werewolf by FTR Games Studio. Most of the games on this list lean toward visual novel or choose your own adventure. This is the only game on the list that's a third-person shooter. From the dark atmosphere to the creepy werewolves, there are multiple times I jumped while playing it because I didn't expect an enemy to be right there. You were kidnapped and wake up on a spaceship full of werewolves, and your goal is to try to escape. I enjoyed Project Werewolf, but I didn't finish it, so that's my next step. Next is Zero End by Stolen Rose. You play a magician who gets invited to a college you didn't apply for. In this story, there's cosmic horror and some very creepy and scary scenes. This is another game that's in development, so keep that in mind. Zero End is up there as one of my favorites on this list, so if you like horror VNs, I would definitely check this out. Moving on to Survivor Strain, aka Somewhere I Belong by Mr. Baker. I streamed the demo with what feels like a long time ago, and I thought it had a lot of potential. While on vacation to a South American country, the zombie apocalypse happens. Since you have no passport and no money, you have to do what you have to do to survive in a foreign land. The visuals were beautiful, and there is a lot of zombies. I'm looking forward to the first season being released soon, I hope. Next is Now and Then by ILS Productions. Now and Then feels like a classic zombie apocalypse horror. You spend most of your time in your apartment with your adopted daughter just trying to survive. This is heavily relationship focused. But as per usual in these games, the zombies aren't actually the scariest creatures around. This is a long VN with about 25 chapters released. I do think there's times where things can be kind of slow, especially during flashbacks, but overall I enjoyed Now and Then. And I think you will too if you like classic zombie horror. I have a review of this one and the link is in the description if you're interested. Moving on to Toxicity by ILS Productions. This is the new game from ILS Productions, which I'm pretty excited for. A mysterious fog rolls in that burns people's skin and makes others sick. As a fan of The Mist, an underrated horror movie, I'm looking forward to see where this goes. However, it's very early in development, so this is one to add to your list, and I'd say sit on it for about a year. That's what I plan to do anyway. Next is Fairwood Retreat 87 by Aya Sakura. This is a female MC and female-focused visual novel. You play Dawn at her first time at sleepaway camp. This is described like an 80s horror, which immediately has me thinking of like Friday the 13th. I'm not sure if that's where it's going, but I kind of hope it is. It's still in pretty early development, so I don't think there are too many scares yet, but I'm guessing there will be as time goes on. Female-focused and female MC VNs aren't exactly my favorite games, but I will be making an exception here. Moving on to I Was a Teenage Vampire by Fatal Masterpiece. I Was a Teenage Vampire is fantastic, even if it being relatively early in development. It feels like an 80s movie in game form. Everything from the setting to the visuals feel like I'm in an 80s movie. There is a vampire on the loose and people keep dying. What's your role in this? Well, I don't want to say. This is one of the few games on the list that I've been very invested in the story and I don't really care about anything else. If you're interested in playing this one, I would check out Fatal Masterpiece's Patreon. Lastly, it's Eternum by Charybdis. Now, Eternum isn't a horror game per se, but the whole scene with the camera in the dark house and on the space station are very creepy, and for some people, outright scary. I was just gonna make Eternum an honorable mention, but that camera scene in the house was so damn good. I mean, Eternum is just a good game in general, and I have to stop being surprised by the quality of some of these scenes. So while I don't consider Eternum specifically a horror, it does have some horror scenes. I mean, Eternum has everything, so check it out if you haven't. Okay, y'all, that's my list. I wanted to create a composite list of all the horror games that I'm aware of in the genre. I'm always looking for more, and if I can get enough recommendations, I may make a part 2. By the way, if you haven't seen my review of Origin Story, you can check that out right here. I also want to thank all my backers on Patreon and Subscribestar. Thanks again. Until next time.